Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Thomas Buberl, CEO of the French insurance company AXA. Thomas, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Andy.
So let's talk about AXA. Multi-line insurance company, or break it down for us?
Yes, so we are 50% B2B, 50% B2C in all kinds of businesses. So from insuring a nuclear power plant to insuring your travel across the entire world.
So is it life insurance also, or you're not in that business, are you?
Yeah, we have 20% of our business is life insurance, but we are more focused today than we used to be.
How unusual is it for an insurance company to have both P&C and life under one roof like that then?
I think it's quite unusual for all the Anglo-Saxon markets. It's very usual for all the European markets because the multi-liner and offering everything out of one hand has been a tradition because mostly in Europe you are distributing through agents that are selling both.
Right. And talk to us about the history of the company. It's based in France, a French company, and the name AXA. What does that mean and where does it come from?
So the origin of the company used to be a very small mutual in Rouen, which is in the north of France. And what is also interesting, I'm only the third CEO in next year, 40 years of AXA. So we had long cycles of CEOs. The founder, Claude Buberl, he said that his ambition was, and he's achieved it, to take the small mutual and build it into the biggest insurer worldwide. And he did with some amazing transactions that he used to do. Then my predecessor, his task was, before the global financial crisis, but also afterwards, to structure this empire of insurance participations into a global financial services company, which he did. And so when I took over in 2016, the question was, what am I going to do based on this amazing legacy that my two predecessors have left? And we went together with my team on a journey in developing AXA from what was essentially a life insurer. We were 80% in life insurance. To what we call a technical insurer, so being in all kinds of risks like this building, your health, your disability, and so on. And yeah, today we are a very balanced insurer, as I said, 50-50. We are very global, so I would say it's an international insurance company with French roots.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you about the geographical breakdown, but AXA, the name.
Yes, sorry, the name. The name is just a pure artificial name. So when the founder, Claude Buberl, grew so much and also did a very courageous transaction within France, he bought his bigger rival. The question came up, okay, what's the name of that company? And so he wanted a name that was, quick in the alphabet, with A, and that was symmetrical. AXA is very symmetrical, and that is also understood everywhere in the world and has no negative connotation. And so we never questioned this name and kept it till today, and I think it's a great name.
Ah, okay. And so where are your businesses globally then?
So 60% is Europe, 20% US, 20% Asia, and more developing markets.
In the US, is it B2B or B2C, and are there brand names that people in America can identify with?
So it's only B2B and only commercial insurance business, and the company is called AXA XL, and they are insuring corporate America.
Now, when you took over the company, Thomas, you were a young guy. You were from Germany, not French. What was that like? How old were you and what was that like?
I was 42 years old, and I was probably the least likely to have this job because of all the attributes you just mentioned. I wasn't French. I was the shortest period of all candidates at AXA. And I even left AXA in between and came back. So none of these points would point out to make me the CEO. But somehow the board did decide to go with me, and I had to basically reinvent myself from zero. So I knew one person in France when I came to France in 2016, my predecessor. I spoke the language a little bit, and that was the beginning of it.
You parlez un petit peu or a little bit more these days?
Maintenant un peu plus, oui.
Right. All right. And so what is your mandate, Thomas? What do you want to do with this company going forward?
So the company, as I said, is still very young, but the company has always had two big, important, iconic features. One was it was always very courageous. So it did deals that others didn't do, and managed also to succeed on the deals. And so this question around how can you transform the business and make it weatherproof for tomorrow was always absolutely key for us. The second dimension was it was a company from its very beginning that was deeply rooted in society. So the founder engaged a lot of initiatives to really bring the employees closer to society, but also to do good things for society. And so, for example, we have an association within AXA which is called AXA Hearts in Action, and we all give our time to help people that don't have the same privileges. So those two features, I would say, have really characterized us since the beginning. And so that was also my mandate. How can I, with my team, transform this company further so that it's really well positioned for the future? And secondly, how can I make sure that the social aspect of AXA is reinforced going forward? And you've seen what we've done on the climate change, what we've done recently on the social inclusion arena. So those are all things that contribute to those two pillars.
Yeah, I want to ask about climate and societal changes and things like that as well. But before I do that, I want to ask you about risk. You're in the risk business, but isn't the world getting more risky? And if so, is that good or bad for you?
So the world is definitely getting more risky, but this is good for us because when I started in the insurance world in 2006, people were criticizing me for going into this business because they said, look, what is this business serving at except it's a bureaucracy. When you look at where we are today, we are a long way away from this. Today, we are in the middle of the game and we need to help manage risks, but also help to avoid risks. And so when you look at the eternal list at the moment of unanswered questions around risks, from geopolitics to cyber to health to social cohesion, and I could go on forever. This is definitely an opportunity for us to help our customers to understand these risks and then also manage these risks, i.e. buying insurance coverage, but also working on prevention with our customers to avoid these risks.
I mean, and of course you have to price appropriately. That's the whole name of the game for your business. And I'm curious about pricing and climate change and just climate change writ large. Isn't this a problem that, despite best efforts in some instances, is getting worse? And are you able to price to make money insuring against climate change?
What you learn in the very first lesson of insurance is that there is never a bad risk, there's always a bad price. So by that definition, yes, you can make money with climate risks. Nevertheless, one has to ask a different question. If climate risks become more and more expensive, and if less and less people can afford it, it doesn't serve you anything because your base of people you can insure gets smaller and smaller. And I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. How can we make sure that we can continue to serve a broad number of people and of societies? And that's where the notion of prevention, so not only paying for the claim, but helping our customers and potential customers to not even have the claim, that's where that becomes very important.
Well, let me take an obvious example then, and one that's relevant to Americans perhaps, is living on the coast, say in Florida or somewhere else in the United States. Does that become, to your mind, are you suggesting perhaps untenable, that people shouldn't live there, or if they want to, they have to pay $100,000 a month premium?
I would look at it in a third way. So many of these people have unfortunately had many losses over the year because being close to a coast, and you know that within 6 miles of the coast you are much more in danger than when you are in the middle of Chicago. certainly when it comes to climate. But so when you look at if a building today is damaged, what is happening? You rebuild in the same fashion than the building that was there beforehand. You could also think about it differently and say, look, should I not rebuild in a way that I'm more protected against the next storm that will come? And I think that's what needs to happen. We need to invest more in more sustainable construction that withstands those climate events in a much better way.
What about the causes of climate change, which appear to be man-made? How sanguine are you about mitigating those changes? In other words, can we stop climate change? Can we actually even roll it back?
Look, I mean, it is very clear that climate change has changed over years, and there's also clear links of our action relative to what is happening on the climate. And if you look, it's quite interesting. So those very large hurricanes have not changed so much over time. They are still often the same trajectory, often the same frequency. What has changed are what we call secondary perils, so events that are smaller, more frequent and more local. Floods, droughts, wildfires and so on. It's those events that create the difficulties today. And so if we look, what we do is we do our best effort when we think about investing and ensuring that we are supporting climate change and invest in those companies and ensure those risks that offer a better future where climate change is less of an issue than it is today.
But so you're helping your customers position themselves to better protect themselves from climate change.
That, but also we are investing their money that they trust us with in investments where we can be sure that they are not contributing to climate change, but they're avoiding climate change. And I think that is our social role to do.
Yeah, and that sort of speaks to the question of the backlash against climate change action by financial services companies like yours, like BlackRock, of course, famously here, in terms of, say, societal change and climate change. Is that something that you felt? Are you concerned about that? If customers said, Thomas, no thank you, we don't need your agenda to tell us, we don't like your agenda telling us what to do.
So when you go back to when we started our action on climate change, it was actually in 2015, where we said, I think we were the first insurer to get out of coal. And the logic at the time was quite an interesting one. We looked at, okay, we have a certain overperformance from these climate difficult investments. And then we had the negative side, which is more natural catastrophes and more health-related claims to climate. Mm-hmm. And so for us, the equation made no sense. What we gained more here, we lost big times here. And again, we are administrating the customer's money that they trust us with. And so we need to make sure that the equation that we find is in the customer's interest. And that's why only from that perspective, without any societal debate, it makes no sense for us to invest into coal, as an example, or to insure any coal plants.
Right. And so that was then. What about today?
It's the same today.
But are there further actions that you can take?
Yeah, I think we've taken quite a few actions. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look, we went out of coal. We essentially also went then out of petrol because we don't insure any explorations anymore, or very few. And so we've continued this journey in making sure that we are excluding what is clearly a difficult issue for climate change. Mm-hmm. We did that on the investment side and on the insurance side to be 100% coherent. We then also put our money that we wanted to invest into those companies that are serious around transition. So if a company says they have got a very credible transition plan, we want to put our money in there. We want to insure these companies. And then lastly, we obviously invested a lot of money that we took out of oil and gas and coal into green investments. So today we are roughly at about 30 billion of green investments, which is a major shift of our portfolio. And so this climate change story that started in 2015 is evolving over time. And so maybe in 10 years, and I hope so in 10 years, we have even taken more measures. But we have to accompany our customers on this journey. We can't be radical either.
And the companies that might want to embrace change, would that potentially include an oil and gas company?
If an oil and gas company is ready to change and works with methods that are more sustainable, yes, then we can have a look at it. But this is mostly in the midstream and in the downstream, not in the upstream.
And what about nuclear? Because France, of course, has made a very big bet on nuclear energy for decades now. Is that something that you think leads to mitigating climate change? Is that a good option? And do you insure those companies and invest with them?
So yeah, nuclear, we insure nuclear power plants, but these are pool solutions because there you have to talk about very large risks and you need many players at the table to make sure that you got a coverage. But yeah, we believe that nuclear is a very good option besides renewables, because renewables have unfortunately peaks. If there is no sun, if there's no wind, there's no energy. So you need a base load, and we do believe that nuclear, not maybe in the form that we see today in France, but in a different form, is a very promising energy. And so we do support and engage in the development and deployment of these solutions.
If you're looking to have a bigger global footprint, I'm going to ask an American chauvinist question. Your stock is not listed here in the United States. Would you consider listing your stock here in America?
I think the French government and the French regulator would not appreciate a move like that. And so look, we are happy today. We are listed in France, but we are a global business. So far, we have not encountered any difficulties that would lead us to this question. So no action planned.
I haven't asked you about geopolitical risks. You mentioned them. There's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, other conflicts that are now not high profile, maybe because those two are so high profile. What is your take on that, and why do you see these problems seemingly getting worse right now?
So, behind all of these topics, and there's plenty more, is a different world order that is establishing, and it's important for us to understand what this world order looks like. So, who collaborates with whom today, to which extent today, but also to which extent tomorrow? Where is this going? And what does it certainly mean for us? And I think when it comes to what it means for us, certainly when I look at the US and Europe, we need a bit more effort to understand where is our place going forward, because maybe the mechanisms of yesterday will not be the most successful one of tomorrow.
I know you've written about or spoken about polycrisis, many different types of crises, including mental crisis, mental health. Talk to us about that, and how do you talk optimistically to young people today?
So it is true that, as I said, the list of risks is very long, and certainly the dependency or interdependencies of risks has significantly increased. I mentioned earlier health risks linked to climate, you have cyber to geopolitics and so on. And so that has made the whole landscape more complex. Nevertheless, I think these many risks are also a big wake-up call for us. And so with this wake-up call, there's also a wake-up call for action. And I think we have a unique opportunity now to rethink our world, because we come out of a phase that was relatively stable, and we were probably also naively thinking about stability. And we're coming now to a breaking point where all things are changing. And when all things are changing, that's also the moment we need to think about, okay, what do I need to do differently with which different partner in order to be successful for tomorrow? And looking backwards to understand what is relevant for tomorrow is probably the wrong way.
Should we be optimistic, Thomas?
I am personally optimistic because I do believe that we also need now this shock to get into the next phase.
Yeah, we certainly have some shocks. And final question, Thomas, tell us why investors should buy and hold your stock going forward.
So AXA is today as I said, a very diversified and balanced global insurance group, very strong balance sheet, and we've got an extremely simple story which is around how can we grow our business more, how can we extract more margin, and how can we be operationally more efficient. That's it. And that is linked to very interesting objectives around return on equity, around underlying earnings per share, and certainly around capital return for the investors.
Thomas Buberl, CEO of AXA, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Andy.
This is at Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll catch you next time.